After we have the CSS and HTML code finished, we have something like this. But as you can see, when you click the buttons, it doesn't really do anything. It's not a flashcard yet. So this is where we would like to add some JavaScript. And let's start by getting this flip button to work. So when I click this flip button, I would like the flashcard to show me some question. As you can see here, a question pop-up. To achieve this, let's go to index.html first and look for the flip button. It's here. It has an ID of flip. And going to the JavaScript code, we would like to create a variable, a cut flip, so that we can use our code to manipulate and control this variable. And we would like to set this variable as document.querySelector and refer to the HTML. Remember, the flip button ID is flip, so we would like to set it as flip so that the JavaScript code knows that this flip variable is basically the same thing as the flip button in HTML. And then after this, we can create a function called update text. And in this function, we would like to achieve the thing we would like to achieve, which is having this question pop up. And to do this, we do the similar thing, document dot. This time we use getElementById, and if you go back to the HTML code, you can see the square right here that contains the question is what we have as a div ID equal to flashcard here. So we can put the ID in the getElementById here. So flashcard.innerHTML. And inner HTML, it is a way that we can update the text, update the HTML content with JavaScript. So it will come in handy in the future too. So here we just set it equal to a question. I would just type question here. You can have anything you want, just any question you would like. And then if we go back to the flashcard and click the flip button, it still doesn't show up. So we need to actually call the function somewhere. So let's do flip. Remember, flip is the variable that we created, and we can do add event listener. So this basically says for this button, if you click it, then update text. Call update text function. So after we call this function, add event listener, we have this question here. To continue, we would like to flip between answers and questions in the flashcard, and here is the code we have for now. In order to achieve this functionality, we need to add a bunch of variables, and here's a quick walkthrough. So here we have an array of questions. So for an array, you can treat it as basically a bucket that holds elements that are separated by commas. And the important thing about array is that, for example, here question number 1 has an index of 0, question number 2 has an index of 1, question number 3 has an index of 2. It's important to keep track of the index, and we're going to use it later in our code. And here we have a current text, which store the current text that we display in the flashcard. And the next variable we have is question number. So question number is basically the index that we refer to in the array. And then the last variable we created is called current state. It has a value either of 0 or 1, and with 0 indicating answers on the flashcard and 1 indicating questions on the flashcard. So next step, we can start creating a function called flipcard, and in this function we will use an if-else statement. So basically, if the card state is equal to 0, which is basically saying that if our flashcard is on the answer side, then we would like to display the answer text. So we will put a comment here and then edit this part later. So display answer, and then if else, so basically else is saying that if the card state is anything but 0, then in this case we would like to display the question instead of the answer. And in this if statement, we want to display the answer text from the array, so we would like to get the element from the array. To do this, we can use, remember that current text is the variable that we created to hold the text. So we can set current text equal to answers and we create a bracket here, and in the bracket we put the index of the element that we want. For example, here answer 1 has an index of 0, so we just put 0 in the bracket, and it gives us answer 1 as the text to store in current text variable. But in this case, we have question number variable we created to keep track of the index, so we can just put question number in the bracket instead of actual numbers. And also don't forget to set the card state to 1. So card state plus plus, which is equal to card state plus 1. So so as to set the flashcard to the question side. And then in the else statement, similarly, we can set the current text equal to questions. So in this case, we want to grab the element in the question array instead of the answer array. And then similarly, update the card state. And in this case, it's minus minus, so set it back to 0. And then we would like to call the function that we created in the last video, update text. And then the last step is to change the event listener. So instead of calling the update text function, we would like to call the flipcard function. And that's it. In this section, we have a quick walkthrough of the next card and previous card function, which correspond to the next button and previous button in our flashcard. Starting with the next card function, we have var length equal to question.length here. The var length refers to the length of the question array we created. So because the question array has 5 elements or 5 questions in it, the var length value is basically just 5 in this case. Next, we have an if-else statement. So here we have if question number is smaller than length minus 1. This is basically checking if the question has reaches the end of our question bank, the question array. And here it hasn't, so we do question number plus plus. We move on to the next card. But if it has reached the end of the question bank, it's the last question we have, then we set question number equal to 0. We go back to the first question we have in the question bank. After that, we update the current text, we update the card state, we also need to call the update text function. The previous card function is quite similar to the next card function. It's just checking if the question we have is the first question in our question bank or not. And it's a similar if-else statement and the similar updates that we need to make.